On my wedding day, my fiancé left me at the altar to help his manipulative mother, so I put an end to it. I was 27 when Derek proposed. We'd been together for 5 years, built a life together, survived my father's death and his career change. He was steady, reliable, the kind of man who remembered anniversaries and fixed things without being asked. His mother Patricia was another story. She called at midnight with emergencies that dissolved by morning. She'd show up unannounced, rearrange my kitchen, and leave passive-aggressive notes about dust on the baseboards. Derek would apologize, promise to set boundaries, then answer her next call on the first ring. It started small. A request to drive her to a doctor's appointment when Derek had taken the day off for our anniversary trip. An urgent plumbing issue that required his immediate attention during my work presentation celebration dinner. A sudden bout of chest pains that sent him racing to her house at 2 a.m., only to find her watching late-night television with a bowl of popcorn. Every single emergency. He went running. The first time it happened, I was understanding. His father had left when Derek was young, and I knew he felt responsible for his mother. The second time, I was concerned. By the 10th time, I was exhausted. But I loved him, so I stayed. My friends noticed before I did. During girls' night, they'd exchange glances when I made excuses for why Derek had canceled again. My best friend finally confronted me over martinis. "He's choosing her over you," she said bluntly. Every single time. "It's not that simple," I'd argued. "She's his mother, she raised him alone, he feels guilty." "And you're his partner," she countered. "Where's the guilt about canceling on you?" I didn't have an answer. My mother pulled me aside at Christmas and asked if I was sure about this marriage. Even his sister warned me once, over coffee at a bookstore where we'd met to exchange gifts. "Mom has a way of making herself the center of everything," she'd said carefully. "I just want you to be prepared." But I loved him. And love makes you blind to patterns you'd spot instantly in anyone else's relationship. Love makes you rationalize, makes you patient, makes you believe that this time will be different. The engagement period was when things really intensified. Patricia suddenly developed a string of health issues. Her back hurt, her blood pressure was high, she was having panic attacks. She needed Derek to take her to appointments, fill her prescriptions, check on her daily. When we announced our wedding date, she went quiet for a long moment before saying, "That's wonderful, darling. I just hope I'm healthy enough to attend." Derek's face had fallen immediately. "Of course you will be, Mom." She'd smiled sadly. "We'll see. My health has been so unpredictable lately." That became her refrain for the next 6 months. Every time we discussed wedding plans, she'd insert a comment about her uncertain health. Every dress fitting I attended alone because Derek was with her. Every vendor meeting he missed because she'd needed him. My bridesmaids started calling her the ghost of Christmas yet to come because she haunted every happy moment with predictions of her own demise. The week before the wedding, Patricia fell. Just a slip on her porch, the hospital said. Minor bruising, no fractures. But she insisted she couldn't be alone. Derek moved into her guest room to help during recovery. I understood. She was his mother. He'd be back in time for the rehearsal dinner. I should have known better. The day before the rehearsal dinner, Derek called to say his mother was having a bad day, and he needed to stay with her a little longer. He'd be there by 6 p.m., he promised. The dinner started at 7. At 6:30, he texted, "Running late. Mom needed help with something. Be there soon." At 7:15, another text. "So sorry. Still dealing with mom stuff. Start without me." At 8 KO, he finally arrived, looking harried and guilty. Everyone was already halfway through their meals. My brother had given a toast without the groom present. My mother had cried. His sister had apologized on his behalf 3 times. "I'm so sorry," he whispered, sliding into the seat beside me. Mom was having trouble breathing. "I thought I needed to take her to the ER. Did you?" I asked. "No, it passed. False alarm. Probably just anxiety." I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw a man who would always have an excuse. But I swallowed my disappointment and squeezed his hand. "You're here now." That night, my maid of honor found me crying in the bathroom of the restaurant we'd rented. "If he's doing this now," she said gently, "what happens when you have kids? When you're the one who needs him?" I wiped my tears and told her everything would be fine. Derek was just being a good son. He'd be there tomorrow, he promised. But even as I said it, doubt gnawed at me. On the morning of my wedding, I woke up in the bridal suite surrounded by silk and lace. My dress hung on the door, a $3,000 reminder of the future I'd planned. Sunlight streamed through the windows. Birds chirped outside. It should have been the happiest morning of my life. I checked my phone. Nothing from Derek. I called. Straight to voicemail. My stomach twisted into knots. I called again. Voicemail. I texted. No response. I tried his sister. No answer. I tried his best man. He didn't know where Derek was either and sounded genuinely confused. My maid of honor brought me breakfast I couldn't eat. Toast and fruit and orange juice that tasted like cardboard and acid and regret. My mother arrived with my bouquet and saw my face. "He's not answering," I whispered. She sat beside me, holding my hand the way she'd done when I was a child and had nightmares. "What do you want to do?" "I don't know," I admitted. "What if something's really wrong?" "Then he would have called," she said quietly. "Or his sister would have. Or his mother. Someone would have let you know." She was right. But I wasn't ready to accept what that meant. My bridesmaids arrived, all laughter and champagne and excitement that died the moment they saw my face. They tried to distract me with makeup and hair and mimosas I couldn't drink because my stomach was a war zone. My maid of honor helped me into the dress while I tried not to vomit. 200 guests were arriving. The flowers were arranged. The cake was delivered. The photographer was setting up equipment. The string quartet was tuning their instruments. Everything was perfect except the groom. At 1 p.m., the wedding coordinator knocked on the door. "We need to start getting people seated," she said gently. "Is the groom here?" Not yet, I said, my voice barely audible. At 1:30 she returned. The guests are all seated. The officiant is in position. We need the groom. I know, I said. At 1:47 p.m., 13 minutes before the ceremony, Derek finally called. His voice was strained, apologetic, everything I'd heard 1,000 times before. Mom had another fall this morning, he said. I'm at the hospital. They're running tests. I can't leave her alone. You understand, right? I looked at myself in the mirror. White dress that had taken months to find. Perfect makeup that had taken an hour to apply. Trembling hands holding a phone while my future crumbled around me like a sandcastle in the tide. Can't your sister stay with her? I asked, my voice surprisingly calm. She's out of town, remember? Mom needs me. I'll get there as soon as I can. Just start without me. I'll make it for the reception. Start without you? I repeated. Derek, it's our wedding. I know, and I'm so sorry, but she's my mother. She needs me right now. You've always understood that about me. That's one of the things I love about you. You get it. Something in his voice made my stomach turn. That practiced patience. That expectation of my compliance. The certainty that I would once again accommodate his mother's needs over my own. The assumption that my understanding was infinite and my patience was bottomless. Where's your mother's room number? I asked. He hesitated. Why? I'm coming there. No, don't. The hospital's crazy today. Just wait for me. I'll be there soon, I promise. You promised you'd be at the rehearsal dinner on time, I said. You promised you'd be back from your mother's house 3 days ago. This is different, he insisted. This is a real emergency. I hung up and grabbed my car keys from my bag. What are you doing? My maid of honor asked, her eyes wide. Finding out the truth. You can't go to the hospital in your wedding dress, my mother protested. Watch me. I'll come with you, my brother said, already standing. No, I said. I need to do this alone. I drove to the hospital in my wedding dress, veil flying behind me like a war banner. I marched through the emergency room doors, train dragging across the linoleum, leaving a trail of white fabric and shattered expectation. People stared. Nurses stopped mid-conversation. A little girl pointed and whispered to her mother about the princess. A security guard asked if I needed help. I didn't care about any of it. The receptionist's face went pale when she saw me. I'm looking for Patricia Holloway, I said. She was admitted this morning. The receptionist checked her computer, confusion crossing her face. Ma'am, we don't have anyone by that name in the ER today. My blood went cold. Check again, I said, my voice harder. She did. Then checked admissions. Then checked urgent care. Then called the nurses' station. Then checked every other department in the hospital while I stood there in my wedding dress. My worst suspicions crystallizing into certainty. Nothing, I'm sorry, she said softly. Genuine sympathy in her eyes. There's no patient by that name here. Are you sure this is the right hospital? I knew it was. Derek and Patricia had used this hospital for years. It was their hospital, the one where she'd gone for every imagined ailment and real minor procedure, the one where she'd had her appendix out when Derek was in college, and he'd dropped out for a semester to take care of her. Thank you, I said. I pulled out my phone and called Derek's sister anyway, praying she'd tell me I'd gotten something wrong, that Patricia was at a different hospital, that there was some logical explanation. She answered on the third ring. I'm not out of town, she said when I explained, confusion and anger mixing in her voice. I'm at home. Mom's fine. She had breakfast with her book club this morning. I talked to her an hour ago. She was laughing about some novel they'd read. What's going on? The world tilted. The fluorescent hospital lights became too bright. My dress suddenly felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Book club? Yeah, she said slowly. She does it every Saturday. Has for years. They meet at that cafe on Maple Street. The one with the overpriced scones. Why? Where's Derek? What's happening? I hung up without answering and drove straight to Patricia's house. My wedding dress billowing around me in the car like a ghost. The veil had fallen off somewhere between the hospital and the highway. I didn't go back for it. My hands shook on the steering wheel. 5 years of my life flashed before my eyes. Every canceled plan. Every broken promise. Every time I'd made myself smaller to accommodate their dysfunction. Every red flag I'd ignored because I was in love. Her car was in the driveway when I pulled up. A silver sedan that gleamed in the afternoon sun. Through the front window, I could see her moving around the kitchen, perfectly healthy, no wheelchair, no crutches, no medical equipment anywhere. She was wearing a floral dress and pearls. She looked like she was preparing for a garden party, not recovering from a fall. Derek sat at her kitchen table, scrolling through his phone, a cup of coffee steaming in front of him. He was wearing jeans and a t-shirt. Not his tuxedo, not even close. They were just sitting there, comfortable, casual, like it was any other Saturday morning, while 200 people waited at a church for a wedding that wasn't going to happen. I knocked once, sharp and loud. Then I used the spare key Derek had given me for emergencies. This certainly qualified. They both froze when they saw me. Derek's face went white. His phone clattered to the table. Coffee sloshed over the rim of his mug. Patricia recovered first, her hand flying to her chest in theatrical shock, the same gesture I'd seen 100 times before. Oh my goodness, you look beautiful. But sweetie, what are you doing here? Shouldn't you be getting married? I looked at Derek, whose face had gone from white to gray. He couldn't meet my eyes. There is no hospital emergency, I said quietly. Silence. Complete and total silence. Your sister is at home. Your mother was at book club this morning, and you've been sitting here in this kitchen while 200 people waited at our wedding. Derek opened his mouth, but Patricia cut in smoothly. Too smoothly, like she'd rehearsed this. Now let's not be dramatic. Derek was just helping me with some things around the house. You know how helpless I am with technology. My computer was acting up and I simply couldn't figure out how to fix it. It was quite urgent, actually. All my important files. I stepped closer, my dress rustling across the linoleum. You sabotaged my wedding, I said. Both of you. That's not fair, Derek stammered, finally finding his voice. Mom really did fall last week. She needed me. And this morning, she really did need help with her computer. She needed you today? I asked, my voice rising. On our wedding day? For a computer problem? She couldn't call tech support? She couldn't wait a few hours? She needed you so desperately that you had to miss our wedding? Patricia's face hardened, the concerned mother act dissolving like sugar in water. A good son puts his mother first, she said. I raised him to understand family loyalty, something your generation seems to have forgotten. I sacrificed everything for him after his father left. Everything. My career, my social life, my chance at happiness. And I won't be cast aside for some girl who thinks a wedding ring gives her ownership of my son. Some girl? I repeated, my voice dangerous. I've been with him for 5 years. And I've been with him for 32, she snapped back. I was there first. I'll be there last. And every woman who's tried to take him from me has learned that lesson eventually. The way she said it made my skin crawl. Every woman. Past tense. Multiple. Something inside me snapped. 5 years of swallowed anger erupted. For 5 years, I've watched you manipulate him. The midnight emergencies that vanish by morning. The sudden illnesses that require his immediate attention. The guilt trips when he dares to prioritize our relationship. I've been patient. I've been understanding. I've made excuses for both of you. I've defended you to my friends and family when they said you were toxic. I've canceled plans and postponed dreams and made myself smaller and smaller to fit into the space you allow me. I turned to Derek, who still wouldn't meet my eyes. But this, missing our wedding, that's where I draw the line. That's where I stop being understanding and start being angry. He stood up, reaching for me with shaking hands. We can still make it. We'll reschedule. Everyone will understand. We'll explain what happened. I'll make it up to you. No, I said, stepping back. They won't. And neither do I anymore. You're being unreasonable, Patricia interjected. Family comes first. Derek was just being a good son. If you can't handle that, then maybe you're not the right woman for him anyway. Maybe this is a blessing in disguise. Better to find out now that you're not willing to support him. By lying to his fiancé? By abandoning her on their wedding day? That's not being a good son. That's being a coward. That's being so enmeshed with your mother that you can't function as an independent adult. Derek's face flushed with anger. Don't talk about my mother that way. You don't understand our relationship. Then don't let her control your life, I shot back. Because that's what this is. Control. She doesn't want you to get married because then she won't be the most important woman in your life anymore. And God forbid she has to share you with someone else. God forbid she has to face being alone. That's ridiculous, Patricia said, but her voice wavered. I want what's best for my son. No, I said, my anger reaching a crescendo. You want what's best for you, and what's best for you is keeping him trapped in this house, at your beck and call, forever alone so you never have to face being alone yourself. You've turned him into a surrogate husband. You've made him responsible for your emotional needs. You've guilted him into believing that leaving you would be equivalent to abandoning you to die. How dare you, she hissed. You know nothing about sacrifice, nothing about being a mother. I know you're destroying your son's life, I said. I know you've driven away every woman he's ever cared about. I know you fake emergencies to get his attention. I know you sabotaged our wedding because you couldn't stand the idea of someone else being the most important person in his life. Patricia's face contorted with rage. Get out of my house. Gladly. I pulled off my engagement ring and set it on the table. The diamond caught the light, sparkling mockingly. 2 carats of broken promises. I'm done, I said, looking directly at Derek. I'm done competing with your mother for your attention. I'm done making myself smaller so she feels important. I'm done pretending this is normal. I'm done pretending that your apologies mean anything when you never change. I'm done waiting for you to choose me. I'm done being patient and understanding and accommodating. I'm just done. Derek grabbed my hand, desperation in his eyes. Please don't do this. I love you. We can work this out. I'll set boundaries. I'll tell her she can't interfere anymore. I promise. This time will be different. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the same pattern I'd ignored for years. The apologies that never changed behavior. The promises that dissolved the moment his mother called. The expectation that I would always understand, always wait, always accept second place. The belief that love meant infinite patience with dysfunction. You've made that promise before, I said slowly, dozens of times. After she ruined my birthday dinner by having a panic attack that mysteriously resolved the moment you arrived at her house. After she interrupted our anniversary weekend by claiming she'd seen an intruder that turned out to be a shadow. After she showed up at my office unannounced to criticize my career choices and made a scene in front of my boss. You always promised to set boundaries. But you never do, because setting boundaries would mean making her uncomfortable, and you'd rather make me uncomfortable than make her uncomfortable. This time will be different, he insisted, tears forming in his eyes. It won't, I said, because you love me, Derek. I believe that, but you'll never choose me, not when she's in the picture. And I'm tired of begging to be chosen. I'm tired of being the understanding girlfriend. I'm tired of coming second. His mother stood up, her face twisted with something between victory and rage. Fine, she said. Leave. He's better off without you anyway. Without someone who would abandon him over one mistake. You're selfish. You're immature. You don't understand real love. One mistake? I turned to her, my voice cold. You've been sabotaging this relationship since the day we met. Every girlfriend before me. Every woman who dared to get close to your son. How many have there been, Patricia? How many women has Derek lost because you couldn't let him grow up? She said nothing, but her silence was answer enough, confirmation of everything I'd suspected. I walked out, leaving them both in that kitchen. My wedding dress caught on the doorframe and I heard fabric tear, but I kept walking. The morning sun was too bright. My car was too hot. My dress was too heavy. Everything felt surreal, like I was moving through a dream. Back at the venue, my brother met me at the door. "Where's Derek?" he asked. The one look at my face told him everything he needed to know. "Not coming," I said. He wrapped me in a hug while I stood there, numb. Inside, 200 confused guests waited. My bridesmaids clustered near the altar, concern etched on their faces. The officiant looked uncomfortable. The photographer had stopped taking pictures. I stood before them all in my torn wedding dress and made an announcement. My voice shook, but I forced the words out anyway. "There will be no wedding today," I said. Derek chose his mother over me. He's been sitting in her kitchen all morning while we waited. There was no emergency, no hospital visit, just a lie. Just another in a long line of lies I've been accepting for 5 years. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Some people looked away, embarrassed for me. Others stared in shock. A few whispered to each other. But there's a full bar, a 4-course meal, and a live band that's already been paid for. So please, stay and enjoy yourselves. Consider it a celebration of me dodging a bullet. Consider it a party for my freedom. My brother stood up first, his voice loud and clear. "That's my sister. Too good for a man who can't cut the apron strings." Then my best friend from college stood, raising her glass. "To making the hard choice before it's too late. To choosing yourself." Then Derek's cousin, whom I'd barely spoken to, but who was smiling through tears. "Some of us have been waiting for someone to call out that toxic mess for years. Welcome to the other side." One by one, people stood. Not everyone. Some of Patricia's friends left immediately, whispering about my disrespect. Some of Derek's extended family looked uncomfortable and made excuses to leave, but enough stayed. More than enough. The room erupted in supportive applause. My friends surrounded me, my mother was crying, and the DJ started playing angry breakup songs at my brother's request. Gloria Gaynor's "I Will Survive" blasted through the speakers. What should have been my wedding reception became a celebration of escape, a celebration of choosing myself. For the next week, I stayed with my brother. I couldn't face my apartment, filled with boxes for our honeymoon and wedding gifts that needed to be returned. My brother's couch became my sanctuary. His spare room became my recovery ward. Derek called 47 times. I counted. Every call went to voicemail. I couldn't bring myself to block him yet, some masochistic part of me wanting to see just how many times he'd try. Each voicemail was the same. Apologies, explanations, promises that this time would be different. Please for another chance. Patricia called twice. The first time her voice was sharp and accusatory, telling me I was being childish and destroying her son's happiness, that I was making a mistake I'd regret for the rest of my life. The second time she was crying, explaining that I'd broken her son's heart, and he was devastated and barely eating. I blocked them both after that. Then the texts started coming from Derek's friends, his sister, even his aunt I'd only met twice. They all said similar things. Derek was devastated. Patricia was playing victim. But behind the scenes, people were talking. Family members were finally speaking up about Patricia's behavior, things they'd noticed for years but never said out loud. Derek's sister sent me screenshots of family group chat conversations where other relatives were finally speaking up about Patricia's behavior, how she'd done this before, how Derek's last serious girlfriend had left him for the same reason, how there'd been another woman before that who'd ended things after Patricia faked a heart attack to interrupt their vacation. His sister visited me in person 2 weeks later, showing up at my brother's apartment with a bottle of wine and an expression of deep regret. "I'm sorry," she said, sitting on the couch beside me. "I should have warned you. I should have been more direct. I dropped hints, but I should have just told you the truth. Mom did this to his last serious girlfriend too. Faked a heart attack the night before they were supposed to go ring shopping. Convinced Derek she'd die if he ever left her. They'd been together for 3 years. She gave him an ultimatum and he chose Mom. The girlfriend moved to another state to get away from the drama. She poured us both wine and continued. Then there was another before that. They'd been together for 2 years. Mom staged a fall down the stairs right before they were supposed to move in together. She ended up in the hospital for real that time because she miscalculated. Broke her collarbone, but she still used it to guilt Derek into staying home to take care of her for months. The girlfriend eventually left too, said she felt like she was dating both of them. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "Because I kept hoping he'd finally stand up to her," she said sadly, tears pooling in her eyes. "I thought maybe with you it would be different. You're stronger than the others. You called her out in ways they never did. You stood up to her. I thought maybe you'd be the one to break through to him, but she's had 30 years to perfect her manipulation. She's got her hooks in so deep I don't think they'll ever come out, and Derek's too guilt-ridden to see it, too programmed to question it." She told me more that night, things I'd never known. About how their father had left when Derek was 8, walking out after years of Patricia's controlling behavior. How Patricia had immediately positioned herself as the martyr, the abandoned wife who'd sacrificed everything. How she'd told Derek again and again that he was the man of the house now, that he had to take care of her, that she only had him. She programmed him, his sister said, her voice breaking, from the time he was a little boy, made him responsible for her happiness, made him feel guilty for every normal thing he wanted to do. Every sleepover at a friend's house was abandoning her. Every after-school activity was choosing others over her. Every girlfriend was a betrayal. every step toward independence was an act of cruelty. She described how Patricia would cry when Derek wanted to go to summer camp, how she'd have mysterious illnesses whenever he had important events, how she'd guilt trip him for going away to college, calling him multiple times a day with problems that needed his immediate attention. I once found him on the phone with her during his college graduation party, his sister said. She was crying because the trash disposal broke and she didn't know what to do. He left his own graduation party to drive home and fix it. It took him 20 minutes. But he missed his own celebration because she couldn't wait until the next day or call a plumber. A month after the wedding that never happened, I got a letter. Not from Derek, but from Patricia. Expensive stationery, her monogram in the corner. Inside was a check for $3,000, the cost of my dress. "I'm sorry things ended badly," she wrote in her perfect cursive. "But you have to understand, Derek and I have a special bond. His father left when he was young, and I sacrificed everything to raise him. I gave up my career as a paralegal, my social life, my chance at remarriage. I devoted my entire life to making sure he had everything he needed. He's all I have. I knew you'd eventually try to take him away from me, just like all the others. They all want to separate a son from his mother. Better you found out now than after the wedding. He needs someone who understands that a man's first responsibility is to his mother, not his wife. Perhaps someday you'll have a son and you'll understand. Though I hope you never experience the pain of having him taken away from you." At least she was honest. Brutally, terrifyingly honest. I ripped up the check and mailed the pieces back with a note on a simple index card. "Keep your money. You'll need it to pay for his therapy when he finally realizes what you've done to him, if he ever does." But I wasn't done. I'd been stewing for weeks, replaying every moment of our relationship, seeing the patterns I'd missed or explained away. I started writing, not for publication, just for myself. Every incident, every manipulation, every red flag I'd ignored because I was in love. The list was 23 pages long, single-spaced. I documented every canceled plan, every last-minute emergency, every time Patricia had inserted herself into our relationship, every boundary she'd violated, every promise Derek had broken. I included dates, times, specific incidents, the birthday dinner she ruined, the vacation she interrupted, the job promotion celebration she crashed, the family gathering where she criticized my career in front of everyone, the time she called Derek at 3 a.m. claiming someone was trying to break into her house, and it turned out to be a tree branch scraping the window. I showed it to my therapist, whom I'd started seeing the week after the non-wedding. "This is textbook enmeshment," she said, reading through the pages with a clinical eye. "And parentification. She turned him into a surrogate husband when his father left. This isn't about her being a concerned mother. This is emotional incest. Covert incest. She's made him her emotional spouse." The term made my skin crawl, but it fit. Everything clicked into place. My therapist helped me understand that Derek wasn't just a man with boundary issues. He was a victim too, programmed from childhood to believe his worth was tied to his mother's happiness, that leaving her would be equivalent to killing her, that any woman who asked him to prioritize his relationship was selfish and cruel, that his needs didn't matter as long as his mother was satisfied. It helped, understanding the psychology behind it. Reading about enmeshment and parentification and covert incest, learning that this was a recognized pattern. But it didn't change the fact that he'd left me at the altar. It didn't erase the humiliation or the heartbreak or the 5 years I'd wasted. 3 months later, Derek showed up at my apartment. I'd moved back in by then, though I'd rearranged everything to erase signs of our life together. My brother answered the door and nearly slammed it in his face, but I told him to let Derek in. He looked terrible, thinner, exhausted, defeated. His clothes hung loose on his frame, and there were dark circles under his eyes that looked permanent. His hair was longer, unkempt. He'd lost at least 15 pounds. "You were right," he said without preamble, standing in my doorway like a ghost. About everything. He explained how Patricia had escalated after I left. More emergencies, more manipulation, more demands on his time. How she'd started calling his workplace multiple times a day, claiming emergencies so often that his boss had pulled him aside for a concerned conversation about his family situation and whether he needed family leave. His friends had started avoiding him because every plan got canceled for his mother. Every dinner, every game night, every casual hangout ended with him rushing out because Patricia needed something. His best friend had finally told him he was tired of being second place to his mother. His sister had confronted Patricia directly, telling her she was destroying Derek's life. Patricia had responded by not speaking to her for weeks, claiming she was turning the family against her, that everyone was choosing sides and abandoning her. "I'm in therapy now," he said, his voice hollow. 3 times a week, individual and group, learning about enmeshment and boundaries and codependency. I moved out of mom's guest room. I got my own apartment for the first time since college. It's small and mostly empty, but it's mine. I'm trying to unlearn 30 years of guilt and manipulation. My therapist says I have years of work ahead of me. "I'm glad," I said, and I genuinely was. No one deserved to be trapped like that, not even the man who'd broken my heart. "Can we try again?" he asked, hope flickering in his exhausted eyes. I looked at him, at the man I'd loved for 5 years, and felt only sadness. Not anger anymore, not even hurt, just profound sadness for what we could have been if circumstances had been different. "No," I said gently. "Even if you work through all of this, even if you become the healthiest version of yourself, I can't forget that you left me standing in a wedding dress while you lied to me in your mother's kitchen. I can't forget that when it mattered most, you chose her. That's going to be seared into my memory forever. That's going to be what I see every time I look at you. What if I'm different now?" he pressed, desperate. "What if I've changed? Maybe you have, I said. But I'm different too. I'm not the woman who would accept that treatment anymore. I spent 5 years making myself smaller, quieter, more understanding, always accommodating. I ignored my own instincts and my friends' concerns and my family's warnings because I loved you. But love isn't supposed to feel like constantly coming in second place. Love isn't supposed to feel like you're competing for someone's attention. Love isn't supposed to hurt this much. He nodded slowly, tears streaming down his face. I understand. I'm sorry. For everything. For all of it. For wasting 5 years of your life. For not being strong enough to stand up to her. For choosing her over you again and again. I'm sorry. After he left, I cried. Not for what I'd lost, but for what I'd almost accepted. A lifetime of competing with his mother for his attention. A marriage where I'd constantly explain to our children why their father prioritized their grandmother over their mother. Holidays ruined by manufactured emergencies. Every milestone tainted by Patricia's interference. Birthday parties where she'd have a crisis. School plays where Derek would leave early because his mother called. Graduations where we'd all hold our breath wondering if she'd create a scene. I'd dodged a bullet. A slow-moving, years-in-the-making bullet, but a bullet nonetheless. 6 months later, I ran into Patricia at the grocery store. She looked older, harder. Her hair was grayer and she'd lost weight. The pearls were gone, replaced by a simple chain. She started to walk past me, pretending not to see me, then stopped. He's miserable, you know, she said, her voice dripping with accusation. Barely talks to me anymore. Moved out, goes to therapy, where they fill his head with lies about me. Tells people I'm controlling, that I ruined his life. You ruined him. I didn't ruin him, I replied calmly, my therapist's words echoing in my head. I freed him. What you did ruined him. The manipulation, the control, the sabotage, making him responsible for your happiness since he was 8 years old. You didn't want a son. You wanted an emotional support possession. Her face twisted with rage. I gave him everything. Everything except permission to live his own life, I said. Everything except the chance to be a person instead of your emotional crutch. You turned him into your surrogate husband and then destroyed every real relationship he tried to have. You made him believe that loving someone else meant betraying you. You know nothing about sacrifice, she hissed. Nothing about being a single mother. Nothing about being abandoned with a child to raise alone. I know you used your pain as a weapon against a child, I said. I know you made him believe that growing up and leaving home would kill you. I know you sabotaged his happiness to avoid facing your own loneliness. And I know that unless you get help, you're going to die alone wondering why your son keeps his distance. How dare you speak to me like that, she said, her voice shaking. Someone should have spoken to you like this years ago, I replied. Maybe if they had, Derek would have had a chance at a normal life. Maybe if someone had told you that your behavior was destroying your son, you would have gotten help. But everyone just enabled you. Everyone just looked the other way while you consumed his life. I walked away, leaving her standing between the produce and the dairy aisle, for once in her life, speechless. A year after the wedding that never happened, Derek's sister called me. We'd stayed in touch, meeting for coffee occasionally. She'd become an unlikely friend, someone who understood the trauma of that family in ways no one else could. He's engaged, she said, to someone he met in his therapy group, another survivor of parental enmeshment. Mom threw a fit when she found out, faked another medical emergency, called him crying about chest pains, and he didn't show up. Just sent flowers and a note saying he hopes she feels better soon, and gave her the number for her own therapist. He told her he loved her, but that he couldn't be responsible for her emotional well-being anymore. I'm happy for him, I said, and meant it. Everyone deserves a chance at a healthy relationship. There's more, she continued. Mom showed up at his apartment unannounced the next day, trying to use her key. He'd changed the locks. She stood outside his door for 2 hours, crying and begging him to let her in, saying she was having a panic attack. The neighbors called the police. Derek filed for a restraining order. Temporary one for now, but it might become permanent. Is he okay? I asked. He's getting there, she said. It's hard, really hard. He has nightmares about her. He feels guilty constantly, but he's doing the work. His fiancé is supportive. They're setting boundaries together. They do couples therapy and individual therapy. Mom's not invited to the wedding. Neither am I, actually, because he's worried I'll tell her about it. They're doing a courthouse ceremony with just witnesses. Good, I said. He deserves that. He deserves peace. And you? She asked. Are you okay? I thought about the past year. The new job I'd taken at an environmental nonprofit, work that actually meant something to me instead of just paying bills. The apartment I'd decorated exactly how I wanted, with bold colors and weird art Derek had always called too eccentric, and plants everywhere that Derek had always said were too much maintenance. The pottery classes where I made lopsided bowls and laughed about it. The book clubs where I met interesting people who had no connection to my past. The weekend trips with friends to places Derek had never wanted to visit. The therapy I'd continued because I wanted to understand why I'd accepted breadcrumbs for so long, why I'd made myself small, why I'd believed that love meant infinite patience with dysfunction. I'd even started dating again. Nothing serious yet, but I was learning. Learning to recognize red flags early, to trust my instincts instead of explaining them away, to walk away at the first sign of a man who couldn't prioritize a relationship over unhealthy family dynamics, to ask questions about family relationships on early dates, to notice how men talked about their mothers. Yeah, I said, I'm more than okay. I'm actually happy. Genuinely happy in a way I don't think I was even when Derek and I were together. I didn't realize how much energy I was spending on managing his relationship with his mother, how much mental space it took up, how much anxiety I carried. 2 years later, I met someone new. His name was Oliver. He was a teacher at an alternative school. the kind of man who laughed easily and talked about his feelings without prompting. His mother was lovely, warm, with clear boundaries and a full life of her own. She had friends and hobbies and her own romantic life, a boyfriend she'd been seeing for 3 years. She was excited about her son's relationships, not threatened by them. The first time I met her, she hugged me and said, "I'm so glad Oliver found someone who makes him smile like this." Then she went back to her own conversation with her own friends at the family barbecue. It was that simple, that healthy, that normal. On our third date, I told Oliver about Derek and Patricia and the wedding that never happened. "That must have been devastating," he said, his face full of genuine sympathy. "It was," I admitted, "but it also saved me from a lifetime of coming second. So in a weird way, I'm grateful. It taught me what I won't accept, what I deserve. It taught me that love shouldn't feel like a constant battle for priority. You deserve everything," he said simply. No qualifications, no buts, just that. And I believed him. On the day that should have been my second wedding anniversary to Derek, I was hiking with Oliver. Someone who actually showed up when he said he would. Someone whose phone could ring with his mother's number and he'd say, "I'll call her back later," without guilt or anxiety. Someone who'd introduced me to his family and they'd welcomed me with genuine warmth, not territorial suspicion. My phone buzzed. An unknown number. I almost didn't answer. It was Derek. "I heard you're seeing someone," he said. His voice sounded different, stronger somehow. "I just wanted to say I'm glad. You deserved better than what I gave you. And I'm sorry it took losing you for me to figure that out. I'm getting married next month, to someone who understands what I went through. We're building something healthy. I wanted you to know. I wanted to thank you." "Thank me?" I asked, surprised. "For walking away," he said, "for not accepting it. Everyone else in my life had just tolerated Mom's behavior, made excuses for it. But you didn't. You called it out. You left. And that's what finally made me see it. If someone I loved that much couldn't accept it, maybe it wasn't acceptable. I appreciate that," I said, genuinely moved. "Mom's in assisted living now," he continued, his voice heavy. "Early onset dementia. The doctors said the controlling behavior and paranoia we saw were actually early symptoms. All those years, she was sick and we didn't know. Or maybe we didn't want to know. The fake emergencies, the manipulation, some of it was symptoms. Not all of it. The pattern started way before the disease, but the escalation was the disease progressing. The irony wasn't lost on me. All those fake emergencies, and when a real crisis came, nobody believed her at first. The boy who cried wolf, except it was the mother who cried emergency. "I'm sorry," I said, and meant it. "No one deserves that. Not even her." "Me too," he replied. "But maybe it's better this way. She's getting care. Professional care. I'm getting healthy. My sister visits her regularly. I see her once a month with my therapist present. And you're getting the life you deserved. The one I couldn't give you." After we hung up, I sat on a rock overlooking the valley, thinking about how one moment can change everything. How standing in a wedding dress in an empty church, I'd been given a choice. Wait for a man who might never fully choose me, or choose myself. I chose myself. And every day since, I've been grateful for the wedding that never happened, for the altar I walked away from, for the future I didn't settle for. Because the truth is, Derek leaving me that day was the best thing that never happened. It hurt. It was humiliating. It broke my heart into pieces I wasn't sure would ever fit back together, but it also freed me. It taught me that love without priority is just company. That understanding has limits. That patience can be a trap. That sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is walk away from someone you love because you love yourself more. I thought about all the women before me who'd left Derek, who'd seen the pattern and made the hard choice. I thought about Patricia, alone in assisted living, her mind slowly erasing the memories of the control she'd wielded. I thought about Derek, finally free but forever scarred by the years of enmeshment, building a new life with someone who understood his trauma. And I thought about myself, sitting on a mountain with someone who chose me every day, not out of guilt or obligation, but because he wanted to. Oliver came up behind me, wrapping his arms around me. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, leaning into him, just thinking about how different my life could have been. "Better or worse?" "Definitely worse," I said. "So much worse." 3 years after the non-wedding, I went back to that church, not for another wedding, but for a friend's baby christening. I sat in the same pew where my mother had waited. I looked at the altar where I should have stood, and I felt nothing but relief. My friend approached after the ceremony, her baby asleep in her arms. "Are you okay being here?" she asked. I didn't even think about it when we scheduled it. "I'm so sorry." "I'm fine," I said, surprised to realize it was true. "It doesn't hurt anymore. It's just a place where something almost happened, something that would have been a mistake." She smiled. "You seem happy." "Really happy." "I am," I said. "It took a while. A lot of therapy and crying and anger and healing, but I am." That night, I called my mother. "Remember when you asked me if I was sure about marrying Derek?" I said. "Of course," she replied. "Best question I ever asked. Even if you didn't listen at the time, you were right," I said. "About all of it. I just wish I'd listened sooner." "You listened when you needed to," she said. "That's what matters. You saved yourself before it was too late. Some people never do." 5 years after the wedding that never happened, I got invited to Derek's wedding. An actual invitation, cream cardstock with elegant lettering. I was shocked. I called his sister. "Did you know about this?" I asked. "He wanted to invite you," she said. "His fiancé suggested it, actually. She wanted to thank you in person for walking away. She said if you hadn't set that example, she might not have had the courage to leave her own toxic situation. Derek talks about you sometimes in group therapy, about how you were the first person to hold up a mirror to his dysfunction." I went. Curiosity got the better of me. It was small, just immediate family and close friends. Derek looked healthy, happy. His fiancé was beautiful and kind, and when she saw me, she hugged me. "Thank you," she whispered, "for not settling, for showing him it was possible to walk away." The wedding was nothing like ours would have been. Simple, authentic, focused on commitment rather than performance. Patricia wasn't there. Derek's sister told me she was in memory care now, the dementia progressing rapidly. At the reception, Derek approached me. "I'm glad you came," he said. "Me too," I replied. "You look happy." "I am," he said, finally. "It took a long time, a lot of therapy, a lot of hard conversations, but I'm free, really free. And I have you to thank for that, for not enabling me, for walking away when everyone else just accepted it. You would have figured it out eventually," I said. "Maybe," he said. "Or maybe I'd still be sitting in Mom's kitchen, missing my own life. You drew a line. Thank you." Later, I danced with Oliver, watched Derek dance with his new wife, saw two people who'd survived similar traumas building something healthy together. And I realized that sometimes the best thing that never happens is exactly what needs to not happen. 6 years later, I married Oliver, in a different church, with a groom who showed up early, nervous and excited, who cried when he saw me walking down the aisle. His mother sat in the front row beaming, next to her boyfriend who'd become her fiancé. My mother cried happy tears. My brother gave a toast about patience and timing and finding the right person. Derek sent a card, a simple message. "Congratulations. This is what you deserved all along. I'm sorry I couldn't be the one to give it to you, but I'm grateful you found it." On my actual wedding night, Oliver held me close. "Any regrets?" he asked. "Not a single one," I said. "Everything happened exactly how it needed to. Because the truth is, being left at the altar was the worst thing that happened to me. But it was also the best thing. It was the catalyst that forced me to choose myself, to demand better, to walk away from dysfunction disguised as love. And sometimes the worst moments create the space for the best life. Sometimes being left at the altar is exactly the push you need to walk through the right door. And sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's just living well. It's just choosing yourself when no one else will. It's just refusing to settle for less than you deserve. It's just walking away from the altar and toward a future where you come first."